lele.
Malotarava.
Malo taulava.
Malotalava.
Malo lele. Welcome to the Kingdom of Tonga. An island nation inhabited by 100,000 Tongans and 50 Peace Corps volunteers. Volunteers living on islands with names like Vava'u.
This is the port of refuge, one of the safest harbors in the world, and is a significant yachting destination.
Hapai.
They say here that Hapai is the place that time left behind, and it's really evident. There are cars in Hapai, and a few people do have access to the internet, but the majority of people really don't come into contact with those sorts of items on a regular basis. A lot of residents in Hapai have never left Hapai and never want to leave Hapai, so there's a much smaller worldview that you find in Hapai.
Ewa.
Biggest attractions that we have here in Ewa are Loch Fa'anga, which are the cliffs nearby here. They're about a 300 to 500 foot drop straight into the ocean. Behind me is the national park, which has some really beautiful trails and has an indigenous species of parrots. You get Whangatave, which has some sea caves that were washed out originally by waves into the limestone, but it's been raised up out of the sea. One of the other attractions, there's two lookouts that look out over the national park that are an easy walk from the main road in most of the villages. Both really beautiful. You can usually see parrots and white-tailed tropic birds. And then next to it is a cave called Rat's Cave that is really unassuming when you first look at it. It drops down into something that would be a small living room and outlooks over the ocean in the national park. It's pretty wild. It's something unique that doesn't really exist anywhere else in Tonga.
In the main island of Tongatapu, in the country's only major city.
Well, just so people know, the city, Nuku'alofa, the capital city, isn't like most American cities. It's, although it's the biggest and most populated, it's a different pace of life compared to living in a slow-paced village. It seems, after you go to a village, like it is more of a metropolitan, cosmopolitan area, kind of.
Since Group 1 arrived more than 4 decades ago, the Peace Corps has become an accepted and well-known part of Tongan society.
Well, Tonga Peace Corps has gone through several phases. You know, we signed our country agreement in May of 1968. So that's when we were officially declared Peace Corps open for business in Tonga.
Back in that time, seeing a foreigner is a new thing, and it was really interesting, you know, just to say hi to them and be able to speak a little bit English with those.
I'm Tina, Tonga 5.
Amelie, Tonga 14.
Hello, Tonga 17.
Roger, Tonga 23. Kamasi, Tonga 23. Miami, Tonga 68. Jeffrey, I'm the country director. Hey!
And whether you are a brand new volunteer in Tonga or a returned volunteer, Tonga quickly becomes part of your life.
Well, I think very important. It's taught me what the difference is between necessity and luxury, and how important it is for family and the Tongan people who are so loving and caring people. I never have a hot shower that I don't think of all the cold showers I took here.
For most volunteers, the cold showers are a small price to pay for the warm, friendly people.
I think really the hospitality and the friendliness of almost everyone you meet and their willingness to do anything to help you out is probably the best thing about Tonga.
And most Tongans not only know about Peace Corps, but they can tell you a story about a volunteer.
Back in the early 70s, I had a Peace Corps volunteer who stayed at our home at Sopo, and I think his name was, we called him Bila Susi in Tongan, and he worked with the Ministry of Fisheries, and that's my earliest memory of a Peace Corps volunteer.
I was lucky because I think when I was 3 or 4 years old, that my parents was next door neighbor to Peace Corps volunteer. So I used to play frisbee and my brother and the Peace Corps volunteer Tom, and like take food, bring back lollies, candies and other stuff. Played with his cat, and he came back to visit my family with his fiancée. So I knew Peace Corps as a little kid.
And those stories continue to develop today as new volunteers come every year, blending their own experiences with those of volunteers past.
Tonga is that it's right at the edge of modernity. So Peace Corps volunteers who are here now play an important role in bringing Tonga into the 21st century.
Volunteers work either as community education volunteers or in business and organizational development.
Those volunteers who are in business and organization development have the widest scope of opportunity. They can do very modern and high technical things, like be very much involved in the IT sectors in society, including GIS. They're also working with various environmental projects. They're working with the National Bank in a bank services capacity.
In Peace Corps Tonga, I'm a GIS specialist at the Ministry of Land Survey and Natural Resources.
Laura Payne had 10 years of experience working with GIS, or Geographic Information Systems, before she joined the Peace Corps. Today, her experience is helping the Tonga government with high-tech mapping projects.
This is a terrain model of the island of Ewa, which is, as far as terrain is concerned, one of the more interesting islands in the Kingdom of Tonga because it does have mountains and some relief to it.
Laura and her Tonga counterparts created this, and now her work is being used by another Peace Corps volunteer. Jason is helping to develop ecotourism on Ewa. He and his Tongan counterparts plan to use the map data generated by Laura to map many of the attractions on Ewa. Right now, the only maps are those drawn by hand. By making it easier for tourists to find the island's spectacular waterfalls and caves, Jason hopes it will help attract more ecotourists.
We are trying now to develop some projects based on ecotourism for the island, and that's the most important part of tourism here in the island. We are trying a new map for Ewa because that's the main issue, one of the major issues in the island. Visitors get lost in the bush most of the time, and that's why we work together with all the volunteers.
It will take more than maps to get the tourists, and that is where volunteers Greg Harner and Steve Hunsicker can help. Greg and Steve work at the Tonga Development Bank, helping small businesses either start or expand their business. Greg is at the main office in Tongatapu, while Steve is at the branch office in Vava'u.
My job is to be a business advisor to businesses in Vava'u, which is one of the islands in Tonga. Basically, I work with any business that needs help doing everything from record keeping to marketing to website development, general business practices, basically anything they need to be successful.
Laura, Jason, Greg and Steve all hope that when their service is done, there will be Tongans who can carry on the projects they have started. Today, Peace Corps is helping to make that happen by teaching a new generation of Tongans everything from English language proficiency to computer use.
My job currently is running the computer lab at the Viney Middle School, also teaching science and English to the higher forms.
Patrick Sager is just one of the many volunteers working in the Peace Corps Community Education Program.
I'm a community educator, so I'm a teacher at Vava'u Side School. It's an all English-speaking school. It's a charter program here in Tonga. we have an assembly. Every morning, the students will raise their hands and choose songs that they want to sing that are their favorite songs. We've got a list of so many songs that they choose from. And then after that, we will do a prayer, and followed up, we will do the national anthem, which is the only thing that we actually do in Tongan here at the side school.
Peace Corps volunteers work with students from kindergarten through primary school into high school and then at the college level.
Well, I entered Peace Corps as a business and organizational development volunteer, but currently I'm teaching residential home building in a tertiary institute.
And not all of the teaching is done in the classroom. Cela Rosa spends her time volunteering in an after-school computer lab where students in her village can use the computers for both fun and schoolwork. Recently, Sarah spent her evenings preparing for the coronation of the King of Tonga. Her village was selected to dance for the king.
The dance is to a song that was written by my town chief's son, especially for the coronation, and it just describes the happiness and excitement surrounding the upcoming coronation. It's a 10-verse song. It's over a 10-minute long when performed start to finish, so it's pretty significant.
Tonga is under the rule of King George V, and he and his family control all the land in Tonga.
I think it's also important that volunteers open their minds to what a monarchy is and how it's defined here in Tonga, because it's a very unique situation. Although they have modeled much of their monarchical rule with the British system, with the British style, there are still many unique things, unique features about Tonga, the Tongan monarchy, particularly its history, that is intriguing and extremely important for volunteers to know.
Living in a kingdom is just part of a big adjustment that every volunteer has to make.
Dispose of any of your ideas concerning privacy or personal space. Well, when we were training in Vavau, I know that every time I went to take a shower, so you know, the large bucket that I showered out of, my little host brother found it really necessary not only to guard where I was showering, but to make sure that I was okay inside by peeking his head on the door all the time and smiling. Yeah, that was nice. It's nice to have a 5-year-old accompanying you on your showering expeditions. You have to relax and realize that the ideas that you have concerning it just, aren't compatible with the culture around you. It's strange, but it's very easy to get used to. The people are very personable about it. It's just, initially it may be a bit strange or a bit off-putting, but after a little while, it doesn't make a difference. You kind of get used to the closeness.
Food can also be a big adjustment. Tongans eat a lot of root crops and foods with a lot of fat and calories.
In Tonga, sometimes people eat questionable types of meats, and at one point I was really sick and my neighbor brought me over a plate of food and I ended up eating it and loving it, and then the next week she had asked me if I enjoyed eating the horse, and I had no idea what she was talking about, and then finally put 2 and 2 together and realized that I had eaten an entire plate full of horse, and so that was pretty funny and embarrassing.
The volunteers who serve in Tonga are diverse, men and women, ranging in age from 21 to 59, straight and gay, single, married, and divorced, Caucasian, Asian, Filipino, and African American.
Well, in Tonga, to be an African American volunteer is an interesting experience. I think overall the people are friendly towards African American people, but sometimes you experience people saying the word nika or asking you constantly, are you from Fiji or where are you from? The Tongan people have no experience or exposure to African American volunteers, So they're curious and they want to know about you.
And I do think married volunteers have a slightly different experience here in Tonga. I think in some regards there's privilege to it. Tonga very much values traditional cultures, traditional ways of life, and marriage between a man and a woman is a part of that traditional culture. So it's rare for Tongan adults not to be married, so I think there's kind of an ease and comfort in dealing with married Americans. That being said, I think that Tongans really value the privacy of family. So I think that as a married volunteer, it can be a little bit more difficult to engage in your community or to make friends because there's kind of an assumption, well, they're married, they don't necessarily need invitations to the feast, or they're married, we'll just kind of leave them alone and let them do their own thing as husband and wife.
Peace Corps training begins within hours of arrival in Tonga.
And then we went to Director Cornish's house, and he had a kava ceremony for us involving all the trainees as well as the volunteers on Tonga Tapu. And our Tongan staff. And I remember Soraya, who was our volunteer leader, she did a traditional Tongan dance for us, and it was really amazing to see how deep she got into the Tongan culture and how immersed she got with the language, with the dancing and everything. And then we got to try some Tongan food for the first time, and it was really exciting. And I was looking forward to the next 2 years after that.
The woman in charge of training all volunteers is Eleanor Kawaka.
In general, they have to learn the language, the Tongan culture, how to work in Tonga. With 2 projects that Peace Corps Tonga has right now, which is community education and business and organizational development. They also need to do some diversity training. Most of the time they'll be immersed in the culture by staying with host families. That will take about 8 weeks of their 10 weeks training.
I think my biggest obstacle has been language. It's a common barrier for all of us as Peace Corps volunteers, and it's something that you directly take out whatever you put in with this. The more effort you put in the language, the more functional you can see yourself at your site.
I will say that learning language is definitely beneficial because there are times, whether it's you want to go to a store and buy something, or you need a taxi ride, or you're trying to work with a client, or work with a business, and they don't speak much English, then yeah, it would definitely be beneficial.
I would say if you really want is to speak the language. That always breaks the barriers right down, and even if it's gender issues, speak the language and Tongans will like, ow! They'll just love you.
Yeah. At the conclusion of training, each volunteer moves to site and finds out where he or she will be living for the next 2 years.
You can expect a small, very simple house. It will probably be made of concrete block, have a tin roof, and Peace Corps will provide some security screening for you, and of course locks for your doors and windows. But it will be very basic.
I live on a Free Wesleyan campus. My house is very modest, 1 bedroom, indoor bathroom. Hi, and welcome to my home in the village of Kalanga on the main island of Tonga Tapu. This is your typical Peace Corps home, 1 bedroom, indoor bathroom. If you follow me this way, I'll start you in my kitchen. Here's my refrigerator. I got a freezer, stocked full with chicken, fish, and then we got my refrigerator. I got some fruit, vegetables given to me by my school's agriculture department, and then here's some water straight out of the Sima Vai, straight up rainwater. It's delicious. And if you follow me over here, here's my 6-burner stove. I was fortunate enough to get both of these, the stove
and the refrigerator from my host organization. And this stove comes in really handy when I'm cooking all my big meals. And through this curtain is my bathroom. I won't take you inside or anything, but I have a flush toilet, running water. It's cold, but it feels great on these warm summer days here in Tonga. And over here is the rest of my kitchen. Here's my sink. I got running water, do all my dishes here, brush my teeth, all that great stuff. And if you want to follow me this way, I'll take you over to my bedroom. And welcome to my bedroom. It's a little small, but it's nice and cozy. As you can see, I have some electricity. And here's my bed. It's a nice double bed, especially for a big guy like me. It works out perfectly. All right, now I'm going to show you next. Really separates my house from the rest. If you follow me this way through this door, and it's not Malibu, but I am living on the Pacific Ocean.
Living in a community is just part of the Peace Corps experience. It's important to get involved. Integration is very important, and understanding the roles of gender can be confusing.
Gender roles, getting used to the gender roles in Tonga, and not having the equality we do in a marriage in the United States has been a challenge and something to be prepared for.
As a Peace Corps volunteer, you come in and you get the men fronting up. You know, they'll be telling you, this is how things happen in Tonga. Just don't stop there. Do talk to the women. Because the women may not speak up. The women tend to always take a back role, because in the Tongan culture, the men are always the ones who speak up in the front, who come to the bank and ask for a loan. But when you go to the business, who's keeping the records? Who's banking the money? Who's planning the business and knows what the business can afford and where, whether it's time to diversify, the timing for the business? It would be the woman. It would be the wife or the daughter who's quietly working in the background.
But becoming integrated into the culture does not happen overnight, and it often comes with mistakes and funny moments, as volunteer Steve Hunsicker found out when he had a conversation with a Fitzgerald, which is the Tongan word for minister.
When I first got to Vava'u, I was still in training and I had not really learned the Tongan language very well and the Tongan traditions. And I went to Kava with a Fitzgerald. And the Fitzgerald asked me how long I was going to be in Tonga. And so I went 2 years, like this, not knowing that going like this is the same as using the middle finger in the U.S. So anyway, I was very embarrassed once I learned that I had basically told the Fitzgerald, F you.
They have a thing about dating here, and they call it moa. And if you're somebody's moa, you're either your boyfriend or girlfriend or your chicken, either one. If you are seen walking with any guy, any boy, then it's considered your moa. And he walked with me for 2.5 miles across Iowa, and every village and every town saw it. Everybody was there, and they saw us walk together up to the Kindi, and everybody just assumed that we were dating. It's just funny because now everybody in Iowa thinks we're together, and we're not.
Training was a wonderful time to get to know people and start getting to know the culture. And myself and a few other people that lived in my village put on a skit for all of our host families. And we ended up dressing as whakaletis, which is, in Tonga, it's where a man is raised as a woman. And we dressed as whakaletis and put on a whakaleti pageant. I wasn't so embarrassed by it at first, but then when I got to my village and all of my friends and family started making fun of me for the way that I walked and the way that I talked during the skit, I realized that although it wasn't culturally inappropriate, they definitely found it to be entertaining.
I went to the post office and I was walking back up the hill. It's really kind of a steep hill that is a pain. But I was wearing the wrap skirt in Tonga, the pulidaha, and I was walking along and things were great. And I realized after a while that it was quite drafty and my pulidaha was falling off. And I probably flashed half of Ewa, but yeah, that's my embarrassing an embarrassing story.
The volunteer experience is different for every volunteer who chooses to come to Tonga.
Best thing about Peace Corps Tonga is the volunteers. They're my support system. When you do have a bad day, you always have your fellow volunteers to help pick you back up, and they're who you share your great days with, telling stories about what's happened and how amazing our experiences here are in Tonga.
For the past 40 years, 1,400 volunteers have served Tonga. And for both the volunteers currently serving in Tonga and for those who are about to start training, the Tonga Country Director has one wish.
To arrive in Tonga with a focus on service, yeah? Service in any capacity that they are capable of delivering to their communities or to their school that they're assigned to or to the business that they're assigned to.
The best thing about Peace Corps Tonga is the fact that it's just simply a life-enriching experience. When you broaden your horizons and you open your heart to a new culture, to a new way of life, you find yourself enriched from head to toe. I mean, you just find yourself experiencing life through a new vantage point that really changes how you view the world. And I think it helps give an individual clarity on what they want out of life and how they're going to achieve that. And that's
the best part about Peace Corps Tonga is experiencing this with my wife. I think this is something we'll always look back on, and it's an adventure. My advice to a new volunteer is to come with an open mind and try not to have too many preconceived notions. That was one thing I've had a hard time letting go of, is realizing that all the things that I thought this experience was going to be, it's not necessarily. And once you let that go and try and embrace what it actually is, then you're going to have a much better time here.
Fulfilling my 2-year commitment is the best thing about Peace Corps Tonga. Living here in this society, getting to know this culture is the best thing about Peace Corps Tonga.
The best thing about Peace Corps Tonga is the people. We have a really great volunteer population, and then our staff, both Tongan and American staff, are wonderful, and I feel very fortunate to be spending my 2 years of service surrounded by such great, kind, and thoughtful people.
Come here with an open mind and have lots of fun. You know, Peace Corps is a very finite experience. You're here for 2 years and 3 months, and then it's over. So make the most of it. Don't wait. Just dive right in and just really try and enjoy yourself.
The best thing about Peace Corps Tonga is the beautiful days with lots of sunshine, blue skies, and gorgeous tropical beaches that are always around the corner.
Getting the opportunity to live in a beautiful place in the South Pacific with the most friendly people I've ever met is the best thing about Peace Corps Tonga.
To definitely expect the unexpected. Don't try to assume that things will be a certain way. Keep your mind open and be prepared to be flexible in everything.
The best thing about Peace Corps Tonga is our chance to work with the Tongan people and share our cultures. I think it's like the sharing not only of the Tongan culture with us, but I think sharing of the American culture with the Tongans is very important. And Tongan people love to hear about America. It's like I get tired of talking about it.
The Tongan people are the best thing about Peace Corps Tonga.
Peace Corps Tonga really put me to the test and let me find out what I'm really made of. The best thing about Peace Corps Tonga was the whole experience, every day.
The best thing about Tonga experience was that it was unique. I don't think I could have had the same experience in any other country in the world, and yet it had some universal qualities too that taught me a perspective.
The toughest job you'll ever love, and I think that is the epitome of what we did.
Seeing a different world, learning more about yourself, being put into an organization where you know no one. You come from America, you're on this plane, you meet these people you're going to spend the next 2 years with, and you meet the other groups. But most importantly, the change within yourself, understanding a new world, learning something different, learning a new culture, a new language, just really more of the change within yourself being is one of the probably the most important aspects and probably the best thing about Peace Corps Tonga.